Hello, folks. I am back and I'm here to talk about 1911s and red dots and what was possibly the first production 1911 that already had a red dot installed or it was optic ready. Before I get to that, I want to let you know if you need any type of belts or anything, Core Essentials is the way to go. Get 10% off using my code KEANON10, that's capital KEANON, the number 10 all together. And if you need any optic plates, you can also check out Calculated Kinetics using my code KG2024. All right, let's get to the topic at hand. Now, a lot of people have been talking to me about red dots on 1911s. Some people consider red dots on 1911s a little bit of heresy, but red dots on 1911s have been around since the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, and with competition shooters such as Jerry Miculek and Rob Latham. So this is an example of one of those styled firearms for competition. One of the things was there were two big companies during that time. One was Aimpoint, and there's another one called Tasco. Now, on this picture, it has a Tasco, but there was Aimpoint as well during that time period. Now, a lot of people would say, back then, would say to have a red dot on a 1911 is heresy. You're no professional shooter. You don't need a red dot on a 1911. So as time progressed, all of a sudden the red dot craze has come through. You all know about red dots and everything else that's on today's firearms. The most that you see on red dots would be on your Glocks, your polygons, and then more recently, your firearms such as the staccatos, which are very popular right now, or any 1911 double stack. So one of the things is that I was on a mission to find out what was the first 1911, production 1911, that had a red dot on it. And I looked on the internet and tried to check and everything, and the Google machine was not giving me the information that I wanted. Now, let's exclude companies like Nighthawk and Wilson Combat. Let's exclude those companies because those companies are in a higher tier, let's say, for red dots. They're in a higher tier on their production, and we're talking about the everyday consumer that can afford a 1911 with a decent red dot. So during my search, I went and I checked and I couldn't see anything on Google, but I do remember back in 2018, 2017, there was this one company that started to put red dots on their 1911s. And I guess they were following the trend of having a red dot on their 1911s, but they had some issues out the gate, and some of their issues was how the optic was staying on, or whether the optic was coming off, or was it properly mounted. So they started a massive recall just for the slides to make that correction. And they did have their 1911s had optics that were already installed, which they called OI, optic installed, and the other one was OR, meaning optic ready. So here's that firearm, and I want to call it the first because during that time frame, there was no 1911s that had optics on it. Here it is. It is the Kimber Aegis Elite, and there was also the Kimber KHX. Now, I used to have the KHXs. I since got rid of them because of they weren't keeping me happy with reliability. But I kept this one because this was very reliable, and it is a shooter. This is a 9mm version. There is a 45 version that Kimber did sell. They had the KHX and the Aegis Elite and 45 ACP. So the 9mm and the 45 ACP versions of this was very, very good. You either had the RMR, as you see here, this is the Vortex Venom, or it was optic ready with suppressor height sights like you see here, where the suppressor height sights there. So they were able to actually co-witness with your red dot in case the red dot died. Now, and it's just got my attention that it did. Was this actually the KHX or the Aegis Elite, the first production 1911 that had a red dot on it? And it was just drove my mind curious because all of a sudden everybody's jumping on the new bandwagon of this firearm here, which is 6 Sauer's 1911X Full. This is optic ready, as well as you can purchase it with the optic on it. Now, a lot of I've seen some comments about this. They're like, "Oh, it's about time. There's a red dot on there," but they all neglected the fact that Kimber already had one. And there could be several reasons. A lot of people didn't like the production of the Kimbers at the time. And that's why it kind of like sputtered. And that's why you don't hear much about these at all. If you do a YouTube search, you'll probably see my video and maybe a few other videos. I know one guy uses this firearm as a competition firearm, and he does very well with it. But other than that, I don't see too many people talking about the Aegis Elite or the KHX for that matter. But now they did come out. 6 Sauer has come out with the 1911X Full, and I think it's kind of sparking a little bit of interest with 1911s that have optics on it. So I want you to put down in the comments, are you interested in a 1911 with an optic on it? I do understand there are other firearms that have optics on it, especially with the staccatos and the double stacks. But would you be interested in a single stack, either in 9mm or 45 ACP, that has an optic on it? And for those hardcore guys that believe that 1911s shouldn't have an optic on there, put down in the comments what you think about this. So I just want to keep the video short and just talk about my opinions about the optics on the 1911s. I really think it's an interesting choice, but what is your opinion? With that said, happy shooting, stay safe, #2A.